Hey guys, this is another intro video for another one of my projects. This project is a freeze gun, and in particular it's May's freeze gun from Overwatch. I saw a video of another YouTuber and maker that made a freeze gun, and they made it more of like a backpack, kind of Ghostbuster style, gun. What I want to do is I want to make it a little bit smaller and make it so that I can make it look like May's freeze gun. So I have a lot of parts assembled here today, and we're going to go through putting them together and seeing if we can get it to work. I did some preliminary tests to make sure that everything fits, but I have not connected everything to make sure it's live. So we're going to do a little bit, this is going to be a little bit of a build video, and it's going to be a first time build video. So this is going to be the first time for me seeing what happens and see if this is successful. So first off, I'm going to get safety goggles, some work gloves. Okay. Let's go through some of the parts that I have in front of us. So one, I have a paintball CO2 tank. This is a 20-ounce tank. I have 20 feet of power washing hose that's rated for 3,000 psi. And all these parts are rated for 3,000 psi because I wanted to future-proof this, because I wanted the idea or the option of either using a like paintball CO2 tanks or using 5-pound like aluminum CO2 tanks that are at higher pressures. So I wanted to be able to go, if I choose to go, if I don't like CO2, if it's not like enough volume or enough ammo for the freeze gun, I want to be able to switch over to CO2 tanks, which will be bigger and heavier, but it will give me more ammo to be able to demonstrate it when I wear this. But next up we have this is a power washer handle. It's just a generic one. I just like the shape of this one because it's nice and compact, short, and it's nice and thin, so that it could fit inside of a 3D printed part. So what I'm going to do is I have a preliminary 3D printed part that I made. This is from this is a modified version of some 3D printed parts I found on Thingiverse of May's gun, and I made it so that the cavity inside fits this power washer. So now it fits inside, and the handle part, and other parts are going to go and attach around this. That's going to make it look like the May gun, but I know that it's going to be able to fit. So now I know that this is going to be a good fit. So this is going to be our 3D printed part, and then this is going to be the handle or the gun of our freeze gun. So and then we have various power washer ends that have different diameter nozzles that create different streams, and we're going to test out. Each of them are just like a different thickness. So we have they go by color, and like the black is the biggest one. It has like the biggest aperture. I don't know if that's right, or orifice, I should say. The smaller we're going, the faster the compressed CO2 is going to come out. So we're going to have to do a little bit of testing to see how small we need to get in order to create the freeze effect, to give it that more stunning visual effect. So these are the fittings that are going to change our CO2 tanks into power wash. There are a couple pieces here, so let's open some space up. Okay. So we have, this is paintball to C320 CGA, which is a fancy way of saying standard aluminum tank threads. And then we have a converter that converts aluminum tank to regular inch size threads, and then another adapter that changes the inch size threads to power washer threads. And they all are going to connect together, and then they're going to connect to the hose. So it's going to be in this kind of map. This is a protector cap. And then the hose is then going to connect to the power washer handle. So let's get started and putting things together. I also have some O-rings and Teflon tape to make everything airtight. So, and I also have wrenches that are essential for tightening these together. If you try to use adjustable wrenches or channel locks, they rip apart the surrounding the hex of these fittings, and then you can't tighten them anymore. So you have to use exact, wrenches. Luckily, the hardware store sells these individually, so I was able to pick up the 3 that I needed without having to buy like a whole set. So we'll put this washer in, and I have an O-ring in here, a washer in here. Get some Teflon tape. I'm not sure how much I'm going to need, so I'm just going to break off a piece. I think it's a good amount, and I'll take off any excess. I want to wrap it around these threads, make it nice and tight. So if I wrap it this way, I'll make sure I get this right, because once we wrap, we want to make sure we wrap it in the direction that it will tighten it, so that when so we want to do this way. That way when because if you do it the wrong way, while you're squeezing the part on, it's just gonna go in the opposite direction of the Teflon tape, and just push the Teflon tape out of the way as it tightens. And then we're gonna go with this one. We could actually go with this. Since this is the end, I could actually use this wrench part. And then this is the big one. So I'm going to have to go this way. And oops. Wish I had a third hand so I could hold on to everything. Okay. I suspect after I tighten these that it's going to be the last time I'm unable to tighten them. So, make sure I do this once and I do it right, or else I have to buy all these fittings all over again. So, do it this way, that's going to undo it, so we can do it this way. I think this, in my preliminary test, this was the critical point where there was a leak. So I want to make sure that get a good amount of Teflon tape on this one, and get this one as tight and far down as possible. Okay. This one is the big one. So now, since we're in the in-betweens, and then I'm not attaching the gun or the CO2 tank, I could use this end part, which will give me a little bit more grip. But once everything's connected, I can no longer use that, because then I'll have to fish it through and that won't work. So this one, yes. Okay. Spin, spin, spin. Okay. Let's hope this video comes out good. That's a problem. Okay. So. Okay, so it's free spinning on this, which is a problem. So maybe I need to tighten this some more. Okay. Gotta make sure not to pinch any fingers, because just be in the way of spinning wrenches, because if I slip, all the force that I'm putting will hit something. Okay. And let's get back to this one. Yes. Okay, I think that's as good as we're gonna get because it's just now free spinning. There's minimal damage to the hexes of the threads. All right. So let's take a quick pause and check out our handiwork. Alrighty, now for the next part. Now we're going to connect our little chain of reducers and converters to our hose. And then this hose is the same on both ends, and one end's going to connect to the power washer gun, and the other end's going to connect to this converter, which will be connected to the tank. So let's see. My preliminary test, this didn't leak, but while I'm able to, I'm just going to attach some Teflon tape just to make sure, because after I apply pressure, and if the pressure doesn't get released here, it might get released at the next most vulnerable spot. So I'm going to make sure that, crossing the T's and dotting all the I's. Okay. This one, the end is just kind of like a, hand tighten. So I'm just going to use a channel lock to hold it in place, and then the power washer part, since it's just like a plastic kind of, okay. And I'm going to use the wrench for this part. Okay. Down better. Alright, so as far as it goes. Okay. Then, same thing with the power washer head. The power washer is going to spin this way into it. So make sure that same thing. And luckily I can put the 3D printed parts all over top, so I don't have to worry about disconnecting it. Okay. Right, here we go. Okay. Now tighten this end. And once I'm done tightening this, and we'll go on to testing it, and we'll connect the CO2 tank. Doesn't sound good. I'm going to break it. The fitting spun on the power washer handle. So let's just hope that just, okay. Right, it's here to hoping. Not sure if the power washer handle was designed for that kind of pressure for the fitting, but now is the next crucial step. And we have everything connected. The next step is connecting the CO2 tank to our setup. So I'm going to leave this coiled like this because it doesn't matter, because the pressure will fill up into the gun and then the handle will release it. This part is very important for safety. If you're going to try this at home, if there is a pressure leak in between any of these fittings, the tank will release it from that little bit. So you're going to create like this little pinhole like orifice where the pressure is going to release. And these tanks will release at 800 psi. That's what paintball tanks performance pressures are at. They're rated for 1800 psi, and the performing psi's are 800. So whatever hole that you're getting is going to push 800 psi out of whatever size hole, and that's going to be super tiny, so it's going to be super fast. And this is compressed CO2, so it's going to be very cold. During my preliminary tests, I grabbed, there was a leak, and I grabbed it and tried to tighten it, and I ended up giving myself like a small circle amount of frostbite on my skin. Luckily, it wasn't like a high degree, and I only, froze the skin, and it was able to heal back, and it didn't necrotize or anything. So I was lucky that way. But wear gloves, wear long sleeves, and if you're going to need to tighten something or untighten something, use wrenches or channel locks to grab stuff and hold on to stuff as you tighten or untighten things. These paintball tanks, they don't have like a knob. This little knob here is actually just a pressure release, so that if if there's too much pressure in this tank, like from heat or like when you're filling it, it will leak any excess pressure out that, but it won't. It's not for controlling the pressure. The way it's controlled is there's a little pin on the inside, and once you push that pin in, it opens the tank and releases it. So there's a little male pin in here, so that once you start screwing it in, it starts pushing it in, and that releases it. And the way to turn this off is by unscrewing it, which is not the best way to do it. I've been trying to look for a CO2 or paintball valve. Most of them are not the right. I couldn't find one with the right fitting or the right PSI or ones that weren't just over like $200. So until I find one, the only way for me to turn this system off is by unscrewing the tank. So normally, given if everything's working fine, the handle is the on-off, but like the emergency on-off to disconnect this is to just unscrew it so that it releases the pin and closes itself off. So here we go. All right. So let me put some Teflon on it, because same thing. If there's gonna be a leak, or because the CO2 tank is not infallible either, and it can have a leak, and the CO2 fitting, that last fitting could have a leak also. So you never know. And like this part, since it's like the tank, you're gonna be taking it on and off to like refill it and turn it, turn the system lock, put for storage. So that you're gonna need a lot of Teflon tape just for that part. So these parts, like once you make it, it's kind of set, and you never redo it. So here we go. I'll stand for this part and make sure I have my tools ready for an emergency. So make sure that if I need to unscrew this, I can kind of do that. So that's the only one I need. So I can kind of grab it from here. Hopefully, actually, let's make it in a way that I don't grab it in the pressure. There's a pressure relief pin right there, so that if the pressure does get too high, while it's connected to this fitting, it will come out that fitting. So, so here we go. Luckily, it won't release the air until you kind of almost finish screwing it in. So, go. There we go. Go. Okay, so there's a little leak coming out of the power washer handle, so I think I did damage it as I was over tightening this. But it's not a major leak, so I think we're good for testing at least. So I'm going to test fire this, and let's see what happens. Okay, so right now it's just, I forgot to put the attachment on, so that's why it's just this giant barrel. Let's try one of these smaller orifices ones I have. So maybe we can turn this into, come on. So now with the smaller orifice, it should be faster. And, oh, you might also, actually I might be forgetting one thing. The tank needs to actually turn upside down so that the CO2 goes on the bottom. So I can see it on the edge. It's kind of happening, but maybe we need the bigger one to kind of barrel it. So I think that's the end of my tank, and I didn't create the condensation effect that I wanted. So my prediction is that the CO2 tank, the paintball CO2 tank, might not be high enough pressure. So to create the difference in pressure for it to condensate and give us that visual white cloud of freeze. So I think my next test is going to be to go to a welding supply store and attach this setup to a 5-pound CO2 tank, which will have a higher pressure and bigger capacity, and should give us hopefully the effect that we want. And we'll be able to test more of these fittings, maybe the right, maybe a different one. Yep, I'm out of pressure. So there's like barely any pressure, so it's just a minimal flow. Right. But know the tank is empty now, and we know that there's no leaks in here. There's only a leak in here, and that might have been because I over tightened this. So I might just need to have to buy one of these, which is, I think this was just like a $15 one. So, and I know it's rated to 3,000 psi because I specifically bought it for this one. So I think I just created a leak by breaking something in here, but that's okay. So we know that there's no problems in this system. So, so I'll get the parts, and maybe I'll even create a video at the welding supply store. So stay tuned for part 2, where I'm going to continue more on this and get this system up and running. And once we do, then we'll start decorating it and incorporating it into the May cosplay and give it, give it the exterior of the May cosplay, and give this part the exterior of the May gun. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more of this, please subscribe. And next to the subscribe button, there's a little bell icon, so you'll be alerted the next time a new video comes up on my channel. I also have other videos of my other cosplays and other tutorials, and other cool things that I 3D printed and make. So also share if you really like this. You want to, I really appreciate it. And have if your friend if you think this is cool, your friends might think it's cool too. So please share, subscribe, and get the alerts. Thank you.